This is a new PowerShell module that I created called PSCreateADForest, which is short for PowerShell Create Active Directory Forests. It allows you to rapidly create new Active Directory forests and domain controllers in a predictable and identical fashion. This is good if you are in a situation where you have to rebuild a domain controller from scratch, rebuild new domain controllers that have failed, or if you're setting up a home lab. There are lots of different ways that you can set up Active Directory services on a Windows Server instance. Some ways are through adding new Windows features through a series of menus. You can go through a command line and go through several steps to set it up. And then, of course, you can go through the Windows Server Manager to set it up. The reason why this might be more valuable is that you can always create things in the exact same fashion. When you're setting up an Active Directory forest, you may be going through and misclicking a specific command or forgetting a certain step when you set up subsequent domain controllers. So this really helps speed things up. It's installable off of the PowerShell gallery. Here's one way to install it. Let's go over to the project site where I'm hosting it on GitHub. And you can find all the documentation related to it. There's different ways to install it, and they are listed here as well. The more important part here is the usage examples I'll be going through. And the first thing we're going to do is create a brand new Active Directory forest from scratch. So what we need to do is actually go ahead and get into a fresh install of Windows Server. Let's start up a Windows PowerShell instance in administrative mode. Good. The first thing that we probably want to do is get the host name. This will be handy in a couple of minutes. Here's our host name. Let's also go ahead and check our network settings. So this is our current IP address. Here's our gateway. And this will come in handy when we follow our first steps. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is install the module itself. We're going to let it do its thing. So the next thing we're going to do is import the module. You can see that it is here. If you ever run into any issues and you don't have access to my GitHub repo, you can go get help. PS create ADForest. And you will actually see the documentation that we're going to follow on GitHub. So here's our first command that we're going to do is we're going to invoke some domain controller network settings. Let's copy that. And the main thing we're going to do is we're going to change the host name. Let's call it DC1 because this is going to be the first domain controller that we build. The new IP address. Let's give it .135. We are currently on a /24 subnet. Our gateway is this. And we're going to use Google's DNS server as our upstream DNS service. Let's run that right now. Perfect. So if we go back up, after this is completed, we want to restart the computer. Perfect. We're restarted now. Let's log in. Let's check our host name. We're now called DC1. And now we have a new static IP address that we set before we rebooted. What we're going to do next is we're going to create the new forest and promote this server to the domain controller. So let's copy and paste this. And maybe we'll make this test.com. We'll set the NetBIOS name to test. I'm going to leave this as Win 2012, just in case we ever add older computers onto the domain, it'll still be able to talk to the domain controller. It's going to ask you for your safe mode administrator password. This is a failsafe. Enter one in. Okay, this is completed. Let's go back up to that example. And now that we've ran this first command, we're going to reboot. Let's log in, and you can see now we have that NetBIOS name showing up, so we are running this as an Active Directory domain controller. Log in. And let's take a quick look around. We have all the Active Directory management tools installed. Let's go ahead and use Active Directory users and computers. This is something you would normally use to manage your domain. And it started up. And you can see test.com is the name of our domain. We look at the domain controller, it's this host right here. That is the domain controller. So now that we have an Active Directory forest set up and a domain controller configured, in most scenarios, most organizations are going to set up multiple domain controllers. This is usually for replication and failover. If one host goes down, the domain services and Active Directory services still remains active on the rest of the network. So let's go over to a new Windows Server virtual machine that we have running here. And we're going to follow the same steps as before. PowerShell, run as administrator. You can see our new host name and our current address is 207. Okay, let's install the module. Perfect. Let's import it. Here it is. Let's get some help. So we're going to be following example 2 because this is a brand new host. Let's copy this. And of course, this is going to be my second domain controller. So I'm going to change the host name to DC2. The new IP address that I want to set, maybe we'll make it 136/24, my gateway. And the only thing that's going to be different in this one is we're going to set the DNS server to be the first domain controller that we created. And we're going to run this command now. And again, like it says right here, after this command finishes successfully, let's restart the computer. Let's check the host name, DC2. And we can see that we've set a new IP address for this machine. We can see that the PowerShell module is not installed or imported. So we're on example 2. And what we want to do is add this computer to the domain before we go ahead and make it a domain controller. So let's do that right now. I'm just going to copy this command. And we're going to change this to test.com. Hit enter. I'm getting prompted now. Perfect. So we need to restart the computer. So now that we're restarted, let's go back to our first domain controller. We still only have one domain controller. But if we look over here and refresh, we can see that that new host that we worked on is now added to the domain. Let's go back to our new domain controller that we're currently working on. Let's import module name PSCreateADForest. Let's get help. We have ran the first two commands in example 2. And all we're going to do is run this command, add new domain controller, and restart the computer. Enter in the admin password. You're going to be asked for a safe mode password. And we're going to let it do its thing. It is finished. Let's let it restart. While that's restarting, let's go back to my first domain controller. Let's refresh. And look, it's that DC2 is no longer in computers. Let's go to domain controllers. Let's refresh. And there we go. It's already added as the second domain controller. And if we go back to the new domain controller that we just started, and what you can see now is we have all of the same administrative tools. They're available on the first domain controller as we have on the second one.